Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. We've talked education, now let's talk some business. And joining us to talk about that will be the Director General of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NACCIMA. And I'm talking about Ambassador Ayola Olukone. He is the DG over at NACCIMA. Thank you very much for joining us, Ambassador.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and please kindly excuse this format. I wanted to come to the studios, but the traffic in and around Lagos, closure of Third Mainland Bridge, uh, you know, frustrated that effort. But I'm here thanks to technology.
Thank you for joining us. Now, let me begin with the border opening because it seems to be the latest happening that will affect our relationship with our neighbors. How has this affected our work, in quotes, with the ACTA? ACTA. That word is so difficult, but you know what I'm talking about.
Let us just call it after. It could be a tongue twister to say ASCFTA. Let us say the after. The
After,
African
okay.
Free Trade
All right.
Agreement, so that
Good.
people can follow easily.
Good.
Well, actually, I think the first thing to say that our borders were closed for various reasons, securities, smuggling, and which were undercutting the Nigerian economy, and of course our security as well. But anyway, a lot of water has since passed under the bridge. After reviewing those things, I think the government decided to reopen. So the borders have been reopened, and I think in context of our relationship, our position in the West African sub-region is an indication of the fact that yes, we are ready to be part and parcel of it. We play a very key and very important role in our sub-region. So it was the right thing to do, and we're quite glad that those land borders have been reopened. But it is also very important that in reopening those borders, the question and issues of smugglings and others were also being tackled, and that they will not be, of course, allowed. So in context of the AFTA, generally, the FTA, I think it was the right step in the right direction, because you can be closing your border and then you want to be part and parcel of a continental free trade. So it's the right thing in the right direction as far as the implementation of the AFCTA itself is concerned.
How ready are medium and small scale industries for this interaction with other countries in the region?
Well, definitely the MSME are indeed the bedrock of the Nigerian economy in terms of contribution to GDP. You're talking close to about over 49%. I mean, you're talking about question and issues of employment, about over 70%. So they are key and very important. And there are many members of the in the private sector who are small and medium scale companies. Take, for example, they manufacture a broad range of products from things like soap, food products, pharmaceuticals, and a few others, which also are already also in the African market and even West African market now. So, in context of the AFCT, the MSMEs are very, very important. And I think that was why government, of course, in its wisdom, has launched the 75 billion, the survival fund for the SME, the MSME. If you look at it now, I think you can go online to be able to access some of these funds. But we must learn from history. We must learn from during the lockdown.
I beg your pardon, Ambassador. I do beg your pardon. We need to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue this conversation. Welcome back. We were having a chat with Ambassador Olukone. And he is DG of NACCIMA, Association of what is it again?
Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture.
Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce.
Chambers of Commerce. Yes, you were talking to us about the preparedness of SMEs for AFTA. And how aware are they of AFTA anyway?
You said what? Come again.
I said you were talking to us about the preparedness of MSEs for AFTA. And anyway, how aware are they of AFTA?
Well, the MSMEs will play a key role because in terms of the implementation of the AFTA. First, let us understand that the AFTA itself is a private sector agreement that will be implemented by private sector, actually. So it is necessary for us. It may be a government agreement, but it is the private sector that will operate it. And that's why it's necessary and important for us to capacitate the MSE and reposition them to be able to play this particular role. Let me give a practical example because practical examples are very helpful. For example, the Nigerian coffee sector is growing now gradually. There's a company, a member of our association, who is also involved in selling coffee, producing and selling coffee. You know, gourmet coffee. And somewhere along the lines, they are still struggling to meet the Nigerians at the Nigerian market. This is for real. Somewhere along the Lupeju there, they distribute their coffee through various ways. So in context of the AFCTA, first, they said that they need to take a long view of history. So they've gone to acquire 2 acres of land to grow Nigerian coffee. And they've gone to do that with an eye to compete with Kenyan as well as Ethiopian coffee. This is a Nigerian company getting itself ready to be able to trade in terms that, well, in the area of as far as coffee itself is concerned. And I'm not sure how many of us know about this. So this is a very good example. I'm wearing a fabric, an Adire fabric, which is, you can call about, the famous Adire fabric. And it has been identified that one of the areas where Nigeria can compete effectively is in the area of textile. Even though the textile factory, of course, industry itself is still struggling now. But if you take the case of Adire factory, I remember that I was invited to Ogun State, and the Ogun State government launched the authentic Ogun Adire. So if we can capacitate and support most of those women who are producing this, that means that we can take advantage of the opportunity as far as the textile sector is concerned, as far as this is concerned. Let me give another example. We have one of our members, the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce is across the country, NACCIMA. We have members across the country, and in the north, in the south, in the east, and everywhere. We do have the Nsukka Chambers of Commerce now, brought together 300 farmers under a cooperative to grow the Nsukka yellow pepper with an eye to export the Nsukka yellow pepper outside Nigeria. So the possibility of being able to do that in context of the AFCTA is there. All we need to do is to ensure that the various funds which have been made available, maybe CBN intervention funds and other, can be easily accessed. There is still a problem in terms of accessing those funds now. This is one of the things we should do in terms of facilitating the MSME Survivor Fund, which has been launched. A ministerial committee has been put together so that members can, of course, be able to access that. That is the issue. Implementation, and capacitating our members, the MSME, to be able to trade, to be able to increase their productive capacity. I gave you the example of the coffee company, which is now supplying coffee to in and around Lagos and other places. And now they are now scaling up. They've got acres of land to be able to grow Nigerian coffee, to be able to compete effectively with your Kenyan as well as the Ethiopian coffee, as well as the readiness to be able to trade under the AFCTA.
Sore point, so to speak, in the whole, value chain, if I can use that term, and that is that of accessing the funds that the federal government has supposedly earmarked. There is the ERGP, I'm sure you're aware of it. There is the ESP. There is the Survival Fund, which is an element of the ESP. There is the CBN, Intervention Fund. There is the Anchor Borrowers Fund. And there is an MSME fund from the CBN. So all of these are there. And to a good number of people, it will sound like they're just fantastic rhetoric, wonderful plans, but putting them to use, activating them is the issue. What, in your opinion, is the real issue why they are difficult to access?
Thank you very much. I mean, I will not, I will definitely, I totally agree with you in terms of the question of accessibility of this fund. And that was why during the lockdown last year, the COVID fund, 50 billion that was, I think that was released, we had to take off the issue that the funds was one, too slow in coming and too little. And we said we should learn lesson from that. You've mentioned the ESP plan, the Economic Sustainability Plan, 2.3 trillion. There's so much amount of money which are there. You've also mentioned the MSME fund, which has recently been launched. We saw that on TV. We are telling, and that's why we are engaged as a National Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture, and also as a member of the OPS. We're saying that, look, it's not just enough to mention and say these funds are there. What is the rate at which people can access those funds? Because if they don't come early, it doesn't make sense. And I give you a practical example. We have some members of NACCIMA who applied for 25 million and they were only given 100,000. I mean, give me a break. So that is the point we are making. That let us learn lesson from what has happened in the past in terms of the question of those funds being
quickly. Let's say, Jojo, on this access thing. You've talked about the OPS. NACCIMA is a member of the OPS. MAN is a member. NECA is a member, and a good number of that. Would you say that there was any form of conversation between government and these organized private sector for accessing these funds?
There is conversation going on. The organized private sector of Nigeria is made up of MAN, Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, NACCIMA, NECA, NACI, as well as NASME. And then we do have meetings among ourselves and we engage the government. And this time around, we are ramping it up and say, look, listen, the lessons we learned, you must work closely with the organized private sector. Because if you say that these funds are for the organized private sector, then their members must be able to access those funds quickly. And I think this is an opportunity to be able to reach out again. And I'm sure relevant authorities are hearing it, that please let these funds be easily accessible.
It goes back to the same question. My apologies. It goes back to the same question. If the conversations were going on well with the organized private sector, members of which in associations you have mentioned, why then are these organized people still having difficulty accessing the funds that government says is theirs?
You know, I'm very fond of the famous saying of Mario Cuomo, the famous governor of New York, of blessed memory, who said that you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. That means that you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. These funds have been there. The process of accessing them are some of the issues where you find this obstacle. I'm delighted that there's a ministerial committee that has been set up, and members of the private sector are part of that ministerial committee for the implementation and accessing those funds. And that is why we're saying that this time around, we'll ramp it up in terms of accessibility of those funds, because it doesn't make sense. And that's why we're saying that look at the ESP, and the Economic Sustainability Plan. Under agriculture, you have 200 billion. The home progress, you have it. So the question and issue now is that there must also be targets. This time around, the conversation is saying that within this particular month, percentage of these funds must have been disbursed. 6 months' time, percentage must have been disbursed. I think such targets will help this time around to easily access all of it. And let me also mention, for example, we have the National Collateral Registry, which of course is part and parcel of the arrangement for MSME to be able to get funding without using collateral such as your cars and other things like that, and your equipment. I'm not sure how many of us know about the National Collateral Registry. We are saying that if you want to make sure that people can access this particular fund, then let us be clear about it. Facilitate those things. We conducted a survey in terms of the impact of the lockdown, and it was amazing in terms of the impact. It was so huge. And then people now have difficulties in terms of accessing those funds, because sometimes you have to go online and fill forms and all those things. Can't we find a more ingenious way to be able to access this fund and easily? And that's why we're saying that the chambers of commerce across the country provides opportunity to be able to also help in terms of accessibility of this fund. National chambers of commerce, most of them, of course, they are private sector or companies that are members of the chambers. So the possibility of using that the chambers of commerce is there. Secondly, We also have NACCIMA, the Small and Medium Scale Enterprises Association. It is also possible, of course, to be able to use those ones directly. Then we also have, of course, Manufacturer Association of Nigeria too as well. So that through their members, you can be able to get across and let people, of course, be able to access these funds. So these are the area. But I'm glad that the conversation is on, and we're, of course, telling that easier acceptability. Let me also mention this time. There's a National Gas Expansion Project and Program, which is supposed to popularize gas, and because Nigeria is a gas nation, and there's an intervention fund in the CBN. We are saying that, look, it's not enough to have these intervention funds in the CBN. You're encouraging companies, private companies, to be able to go on and also go into the gas market. How do they accept this fund? Please make it a little bit easier for them. We're not saying it is free money. Anybody who goes to take some of those intervention funds, they have to pay. But accessibility and in terms of concrete steps to be able to accept those funds are issues which we are taking on.
All right, Ambassador, there are so many things to discuss, so little time, but let me just squeeze this question in before I hand to Alero. What is your take on that element of the finance bill that talks about reducing import duties for automobiles and related stuff from 35% to 5%, when we have an automotive plan that government says is working?
Honestly speaking, I think that's an area which we need to look at properly, because your automotive sector must be supported. I mean, I'm sorry, I must mention a member of NACCIMA, Innocent Vehicle, which of course has shown the capacity. And I think this we need to rethink that particular area, because we must capacitate our company to be able to produce our own cars, trucks, to be able to. I think it's an area which needs to be rethinking. We need to look at it again.
Ambassador, industries are already under some kind of pressure in Nigeria. And then COVID came along and made things worse. And then NARC came along and increased electricity tariff. How is industry going to survive?
Well, the question of the Nigerian electricity sector, of course, is not something we can finish into. But the key issue is that, and I'm delighted that government had suspended that. But don't forget that the specific increases we are seeing is not something which we woke up to be able to order. It is within the framework of the MYTO, the multi-year tariff order itself, dating back as far as 2015. So we must accept the reality of it. There are some companies who have been able to, against the background of the MYTO, be able to increase the number of electricity, the amount of money, the amount of supplies which they get. That is one aspect of the MYTO, which is quite good, because if I'm a company and I do get some of these things in terms of this particular area to produce, I think it's good. But the issue and others which you talked about, of course, against the background of the lockdown and all the crisis which we have, was that and I think government recognized this fact, and the NEC itself also looked at it and said, okay, fine, let us temporize as far as this is concerned. But the key issue as far as the Nigerian electricity sector, look at the question of the GENCOs. Now we talk about stranded electricity. How can we be talking about stranded electricity? Because of the incapacity to be able to evacuate. And this is one area I think we should look at. The question and issues of infrastructure in that particular area. And also the functioning of the discos too, as well. But beyond that, I want to use this opportunity to also look, there is a lot that needs to be done at the subnational level. A lot needs to be done. There's too much focus in terms of the center, itself at the national level. The respective states must wake up to it in terms of what to do across the board, in terms of delivering, in terms of that area. And also capacitating and supporting the private sector in the area. Let me quickly just go ahead and look at the mining sector, for example. I serve as the Nigerian High Commissioner in Australia for 3 years plus. And mining, I saw what mining was able to do for the Australian economy. And the resources, of course, in those days belong to those. So I am saying that the mining states in Nigeria, those of them who are there, as far as who have iron ore deposit, those of them who have gold deposit, should take advantage of this vast mineral deposit and work with the private sector. NACCIMA has a mining forum. We have a program as far as capacitating the mining states as far as this is concerned, because government says that, yes, we want the private sector to be part and parcel of it. So the respective states themselves at their level should also wake up to it. Look at a state like Kogi State. An Australian company is out there and they want to start exporting iron ore. But the iron ore deposit is world class. So the point is that, please, I'm using this opportunity to appeal to the respective states across the country. The chambers of commerce are in practically all the states. They're composed of members of the private sector. They should work closely with them so that all of us will not just be going to Abuja, to go and share the money of the excess crude. And by the way, now that the crude is going on, please don't let us be jumping up and down and saying, oh, oil prices is good. I think we should close our eyes to it and look at all other sectors in terms of the question of diversification of the economy, the agricultural sector, the mining sector, as well as all other areas.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador Ayola Olukoni, Director General, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NACCIMA. Thank you very much for coming to enlighten us this morning.
Well, thank you very much. I'm indeed very glad. And don't also forget, we have there's a National Action Committee on the after. And I think I will make sure that the Secretary of the National Action Committee I'll link them up with channels so that the conversation can continue. Because we will not stop. The FCT itself is not a 100-meter dash; it's a long-distance race. So that we can learn what exactly are the advantages. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.